Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Today, we're joined again by another Profit First professional couple with us to share their journey and how it helped them in their coffee shop business. They also have their own system called the Still Method that they will be sharing today. Our goal is to help you be successful in life and business, and the reality is they go together. Brandon and Amanda Neely are small business and financial professionals. They founded and ran Overflow Coffee Bar from 2008 through 2018. Now, they share their experiential knowledge through podcasting and through developing personalized financial strategies for individuals and couples and profitability strategies for business. Their goal is to work with people to take charge of their cash flow, leverage their assets, and increase their profitability in ways that would make their grandma proud. Let's meet our guests. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Amanda and Brandon Neely. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having us. It's good to be here.
Excited.
Can you share a little bit about yourselves and your business?
Yeah, so we're married, not brother and sister or anything. And we've been in business together for since 2008. We wrote our first business plan. We opened the doors to our first business in 2011, so over a decade. And currently we're on our second business. It's called Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, where we help individuals and business owners break through to a smart, stable financial future.
Very cool. And you're on the right place because we love to talk about money and profit.
Yeah.
So how did you learn about Profit First?
Originally, I first heard about it. I heard Mike Michalowicz on a podcast of all things, and listened to the episode, was like, oh, this just sounds easy. We pay ourselves first rather than last every month. And we went and started trying to do that. We're like, here's our basic income. We're going to take it from the business and make it happen. And had no clue that there was a book or a whole system to it, but it changed our lives. Even just being like, okay, we're going to pay ourselves first rather than last in the order of things. Then Brandon came back to it. Yeah.
I started listening to the podcast, and he offered, if you give a review, I'll give you the book. And I was like, well, I'm going to write a review and get the book. And I got the book mailed to me, and it was around Christmas time. I don't remember what year it was, but I gave it to Amanda as a gift and for Christmas. And it was probably one of the best gifts that I've given her, and it cost me nothing. That was awesome. And I was like, wow, and it didn't even touch the budget. of our vacation or Christmas budget. So I should have taken that off of the budget, but whatever.
Did Mike sign your copy, or was that before he started doing that?
I think it was before. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was good. I mean, really just getting it from that, and hey, that whole like gimmick that people say if you write a review on podcasts or in general, it actually works. So anyway.
Well, because he's been talking a bit about some of those things in his new book on marketing, which is Get Different. And so he told, I think it was on there or someone else, he was telling the stories about in the beginning giving out the book and then how he started to use it as more of a marketing platform and how he was changing the way he was doing things.
Well, it really made a difference for us just thinking through it and then just reading that book a lot and saying, man, we thought we were doing it right, but we weren't. And implementing it, and lo and behold, like becoming through that whole thing, becoming Profit First certified, that was a big life changer for us.
So let's talk about that. What was life like before Profit First?
Yeah. So I'll take you back to 2 years into our first business, which was a coffee shop that we opened in March of 2011. So we're there 2013. Things are going okay. We're paying all of our bills. We sit down with one of our mentors, who's also an attorney that we worked with, and we're like, we're profitable. What's next? And we'll never forget sitting at that table and him looking at us and saying, are you paying yourselves what you're really worth? And us holding our heads in shame. We were nowhere close, right? We were making far less than we had made in our cubicles before starting the business. And he was like, well, then you're not profitable.
Yeah.
Like, ask me what's next once you're paying yourselves what you're really worth. Because that's when we can really look to expanding the business, doing some things like hiring managers, right? Like the ceiling comes off, right? So then we're frustrated, like, okay, we got to figure out how to pay ourselves.
Yeah, we felt like failures. Even though we had started a business, it was going fairly well, and people would come in and, the whole thing as an entrepreneur, yeah, but you love it. That's why you do it. Who cares about being paid? Because you love it. Sure, you've heard that before. And I'm like, yeah, I love it, but I also like to eat, and I don't like to eat ramen every day. And I think that was, for us, frustrating, and not paying ourselves affected our marriage, affected family. It was difficult. And so as an entrepreneur, I hear this all the time. Well, I'm going to just reinvest in my business, keep reinvesting in my business. And every time, people will come to you, and I literally had this happen, say, what you should do. All the time they would ask, you should do this, you should add this. And I put in a tip jar, the what you should do jar. So then they would realize all that stuff takes money and I don't got it. And so all those kind of things happen.
I would have thought there'd be leftovers at the coffee shop so you could eat.
Oh, there was leftovers. And that's also was part of our demise of overworking, drinking way too much coffee, eating way too many pastries. I ended up in the ER of all things because of high blood pressure, high anxiety, because a staff person, literally, I'm pretty sure was stealing from us. And when she wasn't stealing from us, she wasn't showing up to work. And so I'm working overtime. And the only way as a coffee shop owner to work overtime is just drink more coffee and you'll go faster. That's not good for your health. Anyway.
So then how did things change with Profit First from where you were there? What was that transformation?
Yeah, it happened really slowly. So I heard that podcast. I started saying, okay, we're going to figure out what do we need to pay our bills, right? Pay our rent, buy enough groceries, and started thinking, what if we could actually save for retirement or, have an emergency fund, something like that. And so I started saying, okay, we're going to cover the basics, but we got to figure out how to make this business work. Otherwise, something's going to happen, right? We kind of realized just how on the edge we were, that if one thing went wrong. And
our biggest risk was us. So putting into like a 401k or any of that kind of stuff for retirement just did not make sense to us. So we were like, how's some stability here?
Yeah. So we started focusing on little 1% shifts. I remember telling our staff, all we want to do is suck less tomorrow than we do today. So how could you maybe sell one extra pastry a shift? Or how could we measure the milk for the latte a little more accurately so we have less waste and reduce our costs? And invited them to come up with ways to either lower expenses or increase revenue. And that would also help them, be able to keep their jobs. And they were super excited about it because now they had some sense of ownership, some sense of their ideas would be heard. And we just kept operating that way. And we did build up a little bit of an emergency fund on our own side. And thank goodness, because there was that major event that happened. We had a huge flood in the business. We had to shut down. And while we were waiting for the insurance money to come in, we still had to pay rent ourselves and eat ourselves, all those things. And if we had not made it through that, we wouldn't have had a business. And instead, about a month later, I found out I was pregnant. We decided we wanted to do something different, and we looked at options. We were able to actually sell the business. And it was because we had been paying ourselves. We had been able to get through that unfortunate event, show that the business was sustainable enough that it could get back on its feet and get back up and running really quickly after something like that. And a few months later, during my second trimester, we trained the new management and passed off the business to someone else. And only because of profit first, we were able to do that.
Well, I think profit first. And, we were learning about this concept called infinite banking.
That's where our emergency fund was.
Yeah. And we used the idea of infinite banking to help us save for the future, but then be able to weather storms. And that helped us weather that crazy, stupid storm.
So what were some of the things that were unique that your employees came up with to save money? Because it's one of the things I constantly tell business owners. Ask your employees. They're on the front lines. If you teach them and you gamify it, they will find you ways to save money.
Yeah, even simple things like how we ordered and making sure we weren't over ordering and, then things were spoiling. We also had got our customers involved too. We had a refrigerator break and one of our customers is an engineer and he was like, "Can I fix it?" We're like, "Sure." And he jumped in, he fixed it. We had to just order a part, but that saved us several $100s that we would have paid a repair person to come out. We switched from ice machines, are very temperamental. We switched to actually leasing an ice machine instead of having to pay for repairs all the time. That would be included, and that saved us a bunch of money. It really came down to when our employees had that sense of pride and knowing that they wanted to do things, they would just be a little more focused, a little more cautious. And they also added new menu items to use the same ingredients, but in a new way, which would help reduce waste as well. I'm trying to bring in any other ideas come into mind from you.
I mean, I think involving not just our staff, but again, our customers, we were building a community. It was a coffee shop. Again, it's all about community. And as that tip jar of, what you should do jar. So sometimes what we got wasn't just money, but it was again, the customer that was an engineer that could fix it. And I gave him a couple lattes for it, and that was great and saved us some money, and it made him feel useful as well. And I think that's part of we all want to be not just being paid, but we want to feel like we're providing something of extra value, I think. And so having some surveys, and listening as a leader was really important. Saying, not just saying, oh, that's not going to work, but how could it work?
And that's a skill that is lacking. People don't listen well. And if you'll listen to your business, it will tell you what it needs, and your customers will tell you what they need. But you've got to slow down and listen and then take action. And as you said, you don't challenge necessarily, but ask, how could this work? What is the nugget inside of here? Even if the first pass doesn't seem to fit, what is it that we go on? Now, you work with a lot of business owners now, helping them to figure it out and helping them to improve for themselves. You've come up with a method called the STILL method. Could you share that with us?
Absolutely. So it's pretty simple, but it can take a lifetime to really master. STILL is an acronym. The S stands for set your sights. Remember your goals. Remember your why. CEOs love that part of the STILL method, right? We want to approach our numbers from a place where we're remembering what those numbers are meant to do for us.
Well, and in this piece of set your sights, asking those questions of where you want to go, having that time to do that. As business owners, as individuals, we're running so fast that just setting a couple hours or doing this regularly, especially at the new year, making sure you know where you want to go, right? To create the business you want, not just the business that somebody else wants. So setting good goals and sights is important.
Yep. And then the T is for track your in and out. In Profit First language is where you do your allocations, right? You look at what's come in, you put the allocations into the different buckets, profit, owner's comp, taxes, and operating expenses, and you kind of track how much has gone out of those buckets. And then I is for inspect your progress. Spend the time to not just do the allocations and make sure you've got enough in your buckets, but actually look, is it bigger? Is it smaller? How have things, just like Mike talks about in the book, how you start to notice patterns as you do it regularly, but you have to take the time to actually inspect it and look at it a little more deeply. And then the first L is look for the 1% adjustment. What's the small shift that you can make to move the business closer to the goals, closer to the S? And then the final L is to live deliberately. Put it on the calendar, what that 1% adjustment is. Talk to your staff. How are we going to make this happen? Whatever actions need to happen, you actually have to put them into action to make it happen. And then you come back a couple weeks later and you do it all over again.
I think that's the main thing I think about with some of this is it's not always about just making money. A lot of entrepreneurs think they'll just solve the problem by making more money for the business, and they never actually pay themselves or look at the allocations or even doing a expense challenge every year, and you can save a lot in that percent when you look and say, well, I don't need this anymore. I thought I did. And, as business owners, I swear we love the shiny object thing. And we keep buying these things and we're like, right, but this didn't do what I needed. And so being able to, because of the numbers will speak to you. You can make really good decisions, and it's not emotional, just off of numbers.
Yeah, you have to remove the emotions from it. One of the things that Mike talks about is call your credit card company and tell them to send you a new credit card and cancel the old number. I use Citibank. Citibank gives me virtual cards. So with a virtual card, I can just create something to sign up, and then it expires in a month. So they can't keep billing it, and they'll send you emails, and they'll be like, your payment doesn't go through. And then you start going, well, do I want to even take time and the effort to re-sign up for this? So it kind of does it automatically for you. And if you change your credit card number, everything will start canceling on you when it gets hit. And then you start to ask yourself, do I really want this? And can I call them up and get a discount? Can I do something different? There's so much stuff that we sign up for and forget about, or it's duplicated by something else, or there's fraud, right? I keep getting fraud emails all the time. Your package is coming. Give us your credit card, to this, to that. So just keeping an eye on all those numbers and constantly asking yourself, do I need this? Is it important? Because it's at the end of the day, it's money out of your pocket, right? Every dollar you give to somebody else is $1 out of your profit and $1 out of your pocket. So it's changing your relationship with money and how you think about it.
Yeah, something that we've done with the STILL method, we've been doing this for a while. We just didn't have an acronym associated with it. And as business owners and married, Amanda's really good at, the budgeting side of things and, all of that. And I want to look at a P&L statement and make sure we are are we having more P's than L's? That's a good thing. And really looking at, okay, how do we make more money? And like combining those two things. I was like the front of the house manager and she was the back of the house, right? And so we had to come together regularly to have these meetings. And oftentimes we don't even personally have these with ourselves. So having this kind of framework and doing it regularly, because life changes, business changes. And so that's why we kind of created it as almost like a spiritual practice, we're kind of going through it regularly.
And one of the things, because I know more often than not, everyone talks about cutting costs, but another way to increase your profit is to increase your revenue while holding costs. So if you can hold your costs where they're at and generate more revenue. So if you're paying rent or you own a building, clearly that cost of that building is not going to go up. But if you can drive more revenue through it, then your costs naturally as a percentage go down. And it also helps you to increase profitability that way as well. So there's multiple levers in the business. You've got to learn to essentially know which ones they are and then track them and inspect your progress and say, did we do any better? And the thing about 1% is 1% a quarter is 4% a year is 20% in 5 years, So even if it's not super fast, imagine a 20% profit margin greater than what you have today 5 years from now. And you get there in little baby steps. And the other thing that's funny is when business owners are profitable, they seem to love their business a lot more than when they're unprofitable. So if things go well, they start to enjoy their business and the fruits of their work.
And again, part of what we want to do is end entrepreneurial poverty, looking at, when we were in the coffee shop, there was a day where I threw a mug and said, I don't want this anymore. And we were like, almost our marriage was going to fall apart because of the finances as well as the stress and really looking and saying, did I create a business that I want?
Yeah. And this actually goes back to something you all were talking about earlier, that you actually do need to bring your emotions into it. Yeah, it's all numbers. Yeah, you can look at it logically, but even if you're making $1 million, if you hate your business, it's not worth it. And actually, by paying attention to how does this make me feel? Is this bringing me joy? That can often guide us to make better money decisions too. And it's a both and. You got to look at it logically and emotionally, right? Find the right mix there, right? We have to bring our whole selves into it, right? You can't just look at it emotionally or just look at it logically. You have to look at it both and decide, from a sane place, right? Which way you're going to go. You're going to go the way that brings you joy. You're going to go the way that makes you more money, and why? And that whichever decision is okay. And the reason I wanted to say that is because there's some really interesting things that can happen when you take the time to reflect and make sure that you're not just making the most logical choice, or you're not just making the choice that's going to bring you the most happiness, but you're looking at both sides. And You're creating ultimately the business that you love. And if you love it, it's going to bring you more profit. And if you think about it, like, let's say you just find a way to save you 1% stress, right? And so now you've got 1% less stress, maybe 1% more joy. Maybe that means you've got a minute extra in your day. You can use that minute to drive more revenue, right? That minute can be spent at talking to a customer for an extra minute to do an upsale. But then that's going to compound, right? Then you're going to see another way to save a minute. Now you've got 2 minutes, but in those 2 minutes, you find some way to save 3 more minutes, right? And then all of a sudden now you've got 5 minutes saved and you keep going that way. It works the same with money. You make a 1% adjustment, it's probably going to open up a way to find another 1%. And maybe that 2% is going to help you see 3%. And so in 5 years, you end up saving 30% or making 30% more profit rather than just 20% because of that compounding effect to it, which I think we ignore a little bit too much. Like, yeah, this 1% is going to be 1%, but over time, it's going to be way more than 1%.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in debt and you can get out of high price debt, that makes major percent changes to your bottom line. Business loans are not cheap. And if you're financing it on a credit card, it's even worse. And if you can get out of that debt, then it makes life much easier.
And the dividends to your stress levels are going to be exponential probably too.
That they are. What else do you see business owners struggling with?
I think what I see is a lot of business owners, they get into business and thinking it's going to be easy or it's going to just happen like super quick. I'm going to make this amount of money. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of entrepreneurs. This is what I call the people who want to be entrepreneurs who actually haven't ever done anything. And they keep talking, right? So, and then there's with those entrepreneurs, I've asked people, do you want a business or is this a hobby? And if it's a hobby, treat it like a hobby, and that's okay. If it's a business, treat it like a business, and never when someone tells me I'm a business owner, but I don't like numbers and I don't want to deal with that. Well, you should probably do something else or have somebody on your team that loves numbers to be able to do that. And I think that's what I see a lot of is they don't actually know the gauges. And that's what Profit First does is give you some gauges. Now, do you need to be good at it? No, but at least understand the numbers. And that's kind of why we created the STILL method. At least have a good idea. That's probably good if you want to be a business owner, that's good to know your numbers.
I always make sports analogies and airplane analogies. You know, imagine sitting at a football game and there's no scoreboard. You don't know the score. Nobody knows how much time is left on the field. What kind of game would that look like? And how frustrated would everyone be at the fact that nobody knew what was going on? It just wouldn't work out. And the same thing, you know, if the pilot got in the plane and you hear him talking up in the captain, ooh, these gauges look kind of neat. I wonder what they say. You'd be running off the plane, right?
Right.
You wouldn't trust him because if he doesn't know how to read the fuel gauge and the airspeed and how high off the ground he is, then you're in trouble. And unfortunately, too many of us are running our businesses without understanding the numbers. And so getting it down.
I think having some degree of idealism, like when we got into business, we would never have started had we not had some kind of like Twitter-pated idealism that it's going to be so easy or, you know, whatever. That was kind of where we stepped in. But then after a little while, you realize some of the reality and you're like, what the heck did I get myself into? And you want to have a healthy balance of, you know, really high optimism, but some realism at the same time. And again, seeing the stats of how many business owners or businesses fail And, kind of like plane crashes. Like if you go in and you know it's going to crash, would you get in that plane? No. That's some of the stats in business ownership. And that's why we became Profit First Certified, is saying, okay, how can we increase the success rate for businesses and owners?
And that's a big thing. When I sit down with my clients, we talk about it. They're like, well, I'd like to start this new line. I'm like, okay, let's look at this project or whatever we're doing and let's put numbers to it. And then let's put fudge factors to the numbers to say, okay, what happens if we're off by 5%? What happens to the bottom line? And by breaking out the numbers and showing them, if this is what you say the overhead is, and this is what you're going to do, this is how much work, and this is how many clients you need to be profitable. And sometimes the numbers just plain out never work. And knowing that up front saves a lot of heartache, time, and wasted efforts. So, yeah, it's very important. And you've made it simple with the STILL method. If people would like to learn more about you, listen to you guys some more, what is the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, wherever you're listening to this podcast, you can find the Grandma's Wealth Wisdom podcast. We're also on YouTube. Or if you like the STILL method and you want to learn more about that, it's stillmethod.com.
Cool. And we'll make sure to put those in the show notes. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Rocky.
I love the concept of the STILL method. And it's basically what I do with my clients. We come up with targets for the year. We track against them. Every month, we look at the scoreboard. We create a few action steps, and then they go make it happen. And we check in to see how it went and what the next step is. We also look at how their business and life fit together and how they can use their profits to build new streams of income. You never know what life is going to throw at you, and having other streams of income helps you should your business face a storm. And they all do. It's just a matter of... Remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. We focus on the bottom line. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me as your Chief Profitability Officer, because you have your zone of genius and want to spend your time doing what you love. I only work with a handful of clients, so they get my full attention. I work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar for a good fit conversation to see if I'm the right person to support you and how I can help you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.